one will stick with him forever.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glove Drop. Quick little Game 5 rundown. The Winnipeg Jets will be taking on the St. Louis Blues, and the series is currently tied 2-2. Tonight, Game 5, they head back to the Peg to see who is going to pull ahead one game in this series. Game 1, the Winnipeg Jets had home ice advantage to start the series off. However, it didn't seem to pay off. The Jets fell 3-4 to the St. Louis Blues last week, thanks very much in part to the St. Louis Blues goalie Jordan Binnington. Binnington has had an incredible second half of the regular season, and he really was the driving factor behind that win. Game 2, back in Winnipeg at the Bell MTS Place, the Jets found themselves on the losing end for a second time. Very, very, very great hockey on both ends, especially due to Sundqvist pulling off 2 goals in that game. The Blues managed to squeeze just by, and they come out with the win 4-3. The Blues extended their series lead 2-0. For Game 3, they headed back to St. Louis. The Winnipeg Jets were able to figure it out, and they dominated Game 3, and they ended up winning 6-3, which would be the biggest difference in goals scored thus far in the 4 games that we've seen. The St. Louis Blues kicked off the scoring in the first period with a goal off of Perron, but the second period came with 3 Jets goals. The Jets not only managed to tie it up, but they came out having scored 3, and the Blues were not able to score a damn goal at all. The first goal scored to tie it up was by none other than former Ranger Kevin Hayes.
Kevin Hayes, long range shot, scores!
Kevin Hayes, the 6'5" Boston brick wall, was traded from the New York Rangers after 5 seasons with the Blue Shirts on the final day of the trade deadline, and he was sent out to Winnipeg. In return, we got Brendan Lemieux and a few picks. So, of course, if you have any question of what team I am rooting for this series, I'm going to answer it right now. Because the Rangers! So, Hazy ties it up, and then 2 more goals are scored during that second period by the Jets. One by So, Hazy ties it up, and 2 more goals are scored in that second period by the Jets. The second goal by Laine, and the third by Kyle Connor. The start of the third period, the St. Louis Blues managed to get 2 more goals scored, but the Winnipeg Jets came back and repeated their second period performance, scoring 3 more, with Kyle Connor scoring the last goal of the game as well as his second of the game. The Jets ran away with that game, and the St. Louis Blues were brought down to a 1-game lead as far as the series goes. Game 4, there was nothing in the neighborhood of running away with anything. The Winnipeg Jets managed to still come up with the win, 2-1 after it went into OT. No goals were scored during the first or second period, and the first and second period were an absolute montage of how great the goalies are on both sides. You've got Jordan Binnington for the St. Louis Blues, who I've already said has had an incredible second half of the regular season, and in net for the Winnipeg Jets, putting on his own clinic, you have Connor Hellebuyck. Both goalies have put on an absolute show, and they have been incredible throughout the entire 4 games played so far. Like I said, the Jets did get the win on their last game back in St. Louis in overtime. Scoring began finally in the third period after the St. Louis Blues struck first, with Vladimir Tarasenko getting one past Hellebuyck. But Winnipeg Jet Mark Scheifele came back, tied it up, and sent it into OT. Overtime in the playoffs is a little bit different, and by a little bit, I mean a lot different. It is a 5v5, 20-minute full period with a sudden death goal, and in Game 4 of the Winnipeg Jets St. Louis Blues series, the sudden death goal came off of the stick of Kyle Connor.
Shot saved by Binnington, out in front, they score! Kyle Connor wins it!
Kyle Connor had an incredible 2 games on the road, having scored 2, of course, in Game 3 in the 6-3 win over the St. Louis Blues, and the OT goal to win it all for Game 4. Game 5, they're headed back to the Peg tonight. It's going to start at 8:30, and we will see which team will pull ahead. Y'all already know what team I'm rooting for, because if you wore a Rangers jersey one time, I like you. So, 8:30, Winnipeg, Bell MTS Place. We will see which team will come out on top and who will lead this series as they go into Game 6. If you like what you've seen, I hope you will subscribe. If you don't, I don't care. You can always get more information at www.theglovedrop.com. You can also check it out on Instagram and Twitter at The Glove Drop. I will see you guys for a series update after Game 6. And in the meantime, let's go Rangers, let's go Kevin Hayes, let's go everybody who ever wore a Rangers jersey. But tonight, literally, let's go Winnipeg. Woo!